Action Team.
Welcome to Perfect Tactics. Yes, perfect tactics. A combat action team podcast talking about tactical gaming as well as primarily Greyzone warfare. And we've got a lot of Greyzone warfare updates today. So we're going to jump right into it. Before we do, I'm Benny, and I'm joined by CerpinTaxt. He's the guy with the beard. Wait, that narrows it down to nobody. He has the longer beard. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so Serpin has long beard. So long beard Serpin. And then we've got Leptic, which has medium beard, and he's down over there. And then we've got me that has short beard. So we all have different
stages.
So Combat Action Team, we are a tactical gaming community focused on, well, tactical gaming. And we formed as a bunch of friends here, a group of friends. We've known each other for a long time. And we wanted to just kind of get around Greyzone warfare, track its progress, track its development, and hopefully have a really good game to play.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we're playing other games like Helldivers 2 and other tactical type games, and just building a community around tactical gameplay. And so if that sounds like something that you're into and that sounds like something that you also want to be a part of, there's going to be a link in the description to our Discord. Come check us out, combataction.team, or the link in our description down below. So that's the little plug for recruiting. Greyzone warfare.
Yeah.
We're going to talk mostly about that today. Usually we talk about other games that we might be tracking, but really right now there's so much meat and potatoes on Greyzone warfare of what has recently come out that I think we can probably spend about a good 30 minutes just going through that. We've got things such as some updates on early access, which is funny because I was just in the Greyzone warfare Discord, and
Trolls.
They're kind of trolly. Let's just be real. They're a bunch of trolls. Anything that has to do with the game studio, they're usually people in there are pretty trolly, but they're funny, and they all are passionate about wanting to play the game too. But we are anticipating an early access end of Q1, right? End of this month, April 1st, which is April Fool's Day, which is the day that we were all thinking there about end of Q1 that we were going to see an early access release. There is talks and rumors currently right now of delays. This is all speculation. It has not been confirmed or actually announced by Madfinger Games, the people who are actually making Greyzone warfare. But the Discord today, which is March 5th, has kind of blown up regarding has blown up regarding delays, and I think people are just possibly just trolling. So, but it begs a good question, right? It's an in development game. We have not seen any gameplay footage.
Soon to be released.
Yeah, we have not seen any gameplay footage. So there's a little part of my brain that really thinks that it's going to get delayed. Just because we are now T-minus 3 weeks or whatever away, and we have yet to see any gameplay footage.
Indie studio, though, maybe they are just hanging on till the very end, as far as releasing footage, and everything is on track. At the end of their recent early access info that came out on the 27th, so last week, it says raw gameplay footage is right around the corner. So maybe we'll see.
I know that they're trying to push it out, but
yeah,
we'll see. I don't want to be I'm optimistic anticipation, right? Like I want a good game because we're all kind of older gamers, where we played a lot of an Arma, Project Reality, Squad in the early days. A lot of games that kind of really just took a lot of time, effort, energy because it immersed you and it brought you into the game. and I really want that back
Yeah.
as a gamer.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
grow with the game as it develops and
Yeah.
new
So
features come out.
speaking of early access, what do we know? What are we anticipating? Assuming that we don't get a delay, which we're getting real close to launch
We
to
are.
the EA release date, so we'll see what happens. Assuming there isn't a release delay, what are we looking at so far?
So, end of Q1, which is end of the month here. The devs have not put any type of timeline as far as how long early access will last. These guys, they've stated on multiple occasions in interviews and platforms that they're in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
So they're in it for the grind of making a really good game. So the early access length is to be determined.
Well, what we do know for early access, like Serpent was saying, right? End of Q1. What else do we know? Server size. What can we anticipate for that coming out?
As far as the early access, I'm not sure if this will be. It probably will be. It'll be 48 players total in a server. The faction sizes will be 16 players per faction. The map is quite large, 42 square kilometers.
That's like a Big Mac, right?
Yeah, like a Royale with cheese
Yeah.
in Madfinger terms.
Mhm.
Let's see. A lot of customability, and we're going to dive into that more here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But you'll be choosing loadouts based off of your mission set and the skill of players within your faction and what you're trying to accomplish. But we'll dive a little bit more into that here in just a little bit. So yeah, quite a bit. 80 equipable gear items for tactical advantage. 80 items.
Now
So
that's gear items. Is that like 80 items you think for like gun attachments or just for like
I think
your
it's probably all of the above. As far
Yeah.
as your kit's concerned, whether you're using regular frags or smokes or claymores or whatever type of breaching charges or something like that. That's as far as we have right now. Is just a number. So it's speculation.
So I wonder if like PII or PCIs are part of that, right? Like
Yeah.
you goggles,
Right.
different types of headgear, gloves, because that would be 80 when you start thinking about like, PII, PCIs, PCCs and PCIs. Like that doesn't seem like a whole lot, right? Like
Yeah.
after if you can conclude all of that,
Right.
so
Right.
be interesting to
And
see
this
if that.
is part of early access. So this is what the early access version will have. So as we get closer to full release and whatnot, we can see these numbers jump quite a bit.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I
or
would
change.
imagine they wouldn't release the game without some baseline
sure.
equipment and stuff, the same normal,
Yeah.
equipment and weapons that you would see or expect from something like, Ready or Not, for instance, right? So,
Mhm.
but I would imagine they would improve upon that, and maybe in the future you can see even things like maybe Raven drones and stuff for increased ability for intelligence and stuff.
Yeah.
I would imagine they'll develop on top of it over a long period of time.
Absolutely.
I'm interested in the AI behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Says ruthless AI behavior. So-
Ruthless. Now, what kind of ruthless? Are we talking like Ready or Not ruthless? Because those mother jammers. Because like Ready or Not AI is like those are literal aimbots. Like they will one shot you with like a shotgun from like 400 meters away. You're like, wait a minute, hold on. How'd
It's
that
not
happen?
realistic.
Yeah, but like last podcast though, like that's not necessarily a bad thing either. Like I had mentioned, if their focus on this game is gathering intel and doing recon and not just
Yeah.
running and gunning, the incentive there to make it intentionally, harsh and hostile is a good thing in the long run for what they're trying to do with the game, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's a tactical shooter after all. So
They've got to separate it from the rest somehow.
Well, I know they're not. I've seen so many interviews, right? Interviews with the developers, the head guy, and they do not want to hold your hand. So like,
yeah.
think about it. You get a mission. a quest. This is like old Arma days. Like, Leptic, you'll love this, right? Like, this is old Arma days where you just get a mission and you might get a grid, you might get something, and you just got to go figure it out, right? Like,
Yeah.
you got to find the location, you got to find the building, you got to find the, if it's a valuable person or whatever the case is, you got to figure it out. I'd be interested in if there's also like bolos, like a bolo report or anything like that might come down, because that would be really cool. Like, hey, while you're on this mission, bolo for a white truck.
Yeah,
It's
maybe
always
it's
it's
like
always a white truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always a white truck. Be careful.
They put heavy emphasis on briefing these missions and paying
Yeah.
close attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that aspect.
So ruthless AI behavior.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about the terminal ballistics, because they had a whole thing about that in some videos, and we're gonna incorporate some B-roll in this podcast, which we didn't last time. So hopefully we'll have some of that going on, which would be really nice. A health system, an innovative health system that intricately simulates even bodily cavities and damage effects, and that kind of
Yeah.
goes into the ballistics, right? So certain ballistics, like armor piercing or whatever the case is, will penetrate armor, but then there are other pieces of ballistics that will do different damage to your body based off of the actual ballistics. And it's saying that this health system will distinguish that, and you'll have to figure out how to triage that.
Yeah. Yeah, medics seem to, or however that's going to work, seems to play a big role in that case. Or self-healing. I don't know. Like
That's the most interesting aspect to me, because in
Yeah.
a game like Tarkov, for instance, you come with a med pack, but then you look at games like Arma and the mod community, and you have things like Cat Medical, where it's completely immersive.
Mhm.
So I'm curious to know where they're gonna draw that line. If it's gonna be like, oh well, you got shot in the thorax and now you've got a pneumo or something, or if it's just like, oh, you got shot in the thorax and you can't breathe, patch it up or something, or how in depth they want to
Yeah.
take that
In
too.
case anybody is wondering, the three of us have played, well, maybe not Serpent so much, but
Not the Arma days.
Leptic and I have played copious amounts of Arma, and
Sadly.
we have played a lot of Arma that required a lot of really advanced medical type stuff, where you'd actually have to triage somebody while under fire, get them to safety, and then the medic would have to actually do a full ass triage of everything that's going on, manage their airways, manage their breathing, manage their fractures, manage everything under the sun to actually save somebody. And you want to talk about immersive
Yeah.
gameplay? That becomes like one of those like a hospital simulators. You know what I mean?
And keep in mind to the viewers too, like we all come from some kind of background, right? Benny and Serpent here and everything come from military backgrounds, and I myself come from a first responder background. So it's definitely interesting to see it, because people who watch shows like 911 or Chicago Fire are like, oh, those are great, and then from the perspective of the people who have actually been in those roles are like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
I'm gonna link to. I was watching this guy. He's like a firefighter, and he posts like YouTube shorts of like what the show is like versus what it's like in real life. And
Yeah,
it's like,
I know you're talking about. They sell coffee and stuff. Yeah,
it's so
those are
funny.
completely accurate. Yeah.
It's so funny. We're gonna go ahead and put a pin in his throat, and he's like, and you're gonna go to murder. You're gonna go to murder. Yeah, everyone lined up for the murder show. Like,
I mean, given the people and the advisors though they have on that team, I would imagine we wouldn't see anything so
Yeah.
So crazy.
ridiculous, right? Yeah, exactly. Like whether it's super in depth or it's not, it doesn't necessarily matter to me. But it would be cool to see something set aside, unlike something like Tarkov, right, where it's just a medical patch, where it's a chest seal, or maybe you need a tourniquet specifically, or something that just gives it a little more flavor, I guess.
I can see this going one of two ways. Either A, they dumb it way down, right, and say, oh, you're bleeding, you have to stop the bleeding, and then you can regain health, or you have a broken fracture, so you got to stop that, and then like very simple, or it's extremely complicated, right? And they take feedback from the community to either, ramp it up or draw it back a little bit based off of, how player activation is with those concepts.
Or maybe even just a moderate take
Hmm.
with, permanent damage when you are in those operations and stuff,
Yeah.
because that would set it aside. Because in Arma, as an example, a lot with the cat and ace medical systems from the mod community, you heal someone up and you treat them for like 5 minutes and they're up and at 'em, whereas they could take an approach that's not necessarily so high skill but not necessarily so simple, but everything that happens to you counts and is going to reduce your stamina
Hmm.
or is going to decrease your aiming, it's going to increase a shake or something, something along those lines.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What's
I'm
the
looking forward.
Consequences.
I'm looking also forward to the what? What? I mean, we have the. I know we got vendors. We've got quests, and I remember there was gonna be like 150 quests.
Yeah.
Hopefully, right in the beginning.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
they've been working a lot on quest design, storytelling, that kind of stuff. I'm really excited to see what they have in store for us there because they definitely seems like put a ton of work into it.
Storytelling would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
definitely set it aside from everything else.
From what I understand, that there's two. The developers want you to either be immersed in the lore of the
Mhm.
story because there is a story that's happening, or you just go in there and just do your missions and just get in and get out, do your thing. Um, but actually, I just noticed this bullet point that there's going to be there was 80 equipable gear items. So that sounds to me like that's personal equipment
Yeah.
because then it says that there are customizable weapons with over 400 interchangeable parts.
So that's a whole separate system. Sounds
400 right from the
optics,
beginning.
grips, barrel links, underbarrel attachments.
And we're talking,
Wow.
48 players, 16 players per faction. I think there's two factions, three factions. I'm not too sure.
I think 3.
Um, that's a potential for a lot of different types of weapons, especially if the factions are from different geos.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's awesome. But the thing that I'm most concerned with stuff like that is how well balanced those
Yes.
systems are going to be too. Because, is there going to be a meta build, or how well
Uh-huh.
balanced are they going to be? Is it going to be slight increases or slight decreases, or is there going to be a clear winner between everything, or is it going to be diverse between what you're doing? I mean, even up to like barrel length, in urban or rural combat and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm most interested
Well,
in
because you
is
look
how
at
it's all going to be balanced.
yeah, because you look at okay, a couple things that's coming to mind, right, from a balancing perspective. You've got all of the different ballistics, right, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Yep.
Different ballistics. You've got an innovative health system that intricately simulates even body cavities, right? So if each faction has different types of ballistics, different types of weapons, different types of whatever, that means that when you're talking about a loadout for your squad, right? Depending on how the health system works, do you even bring a medic? Like, is it important to bring like a medic type build so that way, if you take certain types of damage or you get shot in a certain way, that only a medic can really do anything for you? Because otherwise, what happens is, like Leptic was saying, if it's just a matter of bringing like a med kit, right, that you can just patch yourself up whenever you need. It's always your arm that you're patching up. You got shot in the leg,
Yeah.
but let's patch up your arm. Then everyone is just gonna bring, like a grenadier or a machine gunner and just,
Yeah.
run around with that and just do damage. So
I think it's heavily dependent, or at least what they're intended to, mission specific loadouts.
mhm.
Whatever the mission is, gear accordingly. They definitely put some emphasis on that. So it'll be
which
interesting
which
to see.
which takes us to like the progression system, right? Because the
Yeah.
progression system wasn't like I remember watching an interview about the progression system. The progression system. Say that 5 times fast. Um, it wasn't like, oh, well, run around under load and then you get more strength. No, it was actually like doing things that required skill,
Yeah.
right? And if you showed skill in something, you would progress in something, which really is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. True.
Not
True
just,
to real life.
oh, let's go ahead and get heavy
Experience.
and run around for 300 meters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like an athletics base or aerobics or something, or acrobatics rather, kind of like you would see in some like RPG style games and stuff. The more you play, the better you become in certain areas.
And then that argues that opens up the argument of like casual versus grinders, right? So if I can sit there and play for 8 hours and run around with, 80 pounds of load for 300 meters all day long, obviously my strength, my stamina is going to be a lot better than somebody else who just hops in and wants to play,
Yeah.
a couple of hours or whatever the case might be. So if it's actually skill based and not just, oh, I ran around for 3 hours, then people who are casual that could actually progress based off of skill can somewhat still compete. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair system. If you're playing it every so often versus the guy who plays it every day, I mean, you should reward your most dedicated fan base and stuff, and they should be able to excel and exceed and be able to help the more casual players and stuff. I mean, I don't see any problems with that.
unless you are you never touch grass, and you have better aim because you can run around with
You're an
no stamp.
online war veteran.
You're an online war veteran. Cool. So, I mean, obviously they're going to have other cool things, right? Serpent, like, VoIP and social stuff and all that kind of good stuff. So, I think early access is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be really fun. I think
It looks
they
pretty
deliver
well
on this.
rounded. So I would, given what it's coming out with, if it got delayed, if those rumors are true, a little bit understandable. We'll obviously keep you up to date on any news we hear of a date of early access, and if it gets pushed or if we're still on track. As soon as we hear about it, y'all will know about it.
Yeah, and join our Discord if you want to stay up to date. Join our Discord. We keep up to date on what's happening in Greyzone warfare. So
Daily.
daily. So back to there was a dev blog that came out on the 29th of February. So it's now March 5th. This podcast will probably be out in the next day or two. And they were talking about marksmanship skills. So there's things like penetrative capabilities. Penetrative. There's temporary cavities, and they were shooting. There's ricochets. There's the requirement to have to control the recoil. There's
Caliber.
of course the knowing your body, and you kind of get an idea about the medical system. If you look at this, we'll show all this, on the screen here, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But let's talk a little bit about this penetrative capabilities, right? Because they touch on things with like soft lead core, FMJ, tungsten core, armor piercing. Some soft lead will struggle to penetrate, whereas tungsten core rounds can go through multiple layers. It even takes into consideration like kinetic energy density, angle of obliquity, deformation, difference between full and partial penetration. Like that seems like a lot of calculations that are happening on the fly, and I'm worried about desyncs. I'm worried about in a multiplayer situation, all that types of penetrative capabilities. How does that actually play into gameplay?
I think for starters, it's really cool to see a developer in just in the tactical shooting world, as a military veteran, paying attention to stuff like this. It's not your arcadey. It's not your just. There needs to be thought put into it. Ballistics, mission set. Again, I keep touching on that. If you're going into a CQB environment where you have maybe an HVT that you're going after, or a hostage situation, you might not want to use something that's going to penetrate walls and stuff. You might get your HVT. So understanding the difference in those ballistics and the types of projectiles that you are shooting and what they're good for will be key in the game. And maybe you have some of your squad that you're going out with, your fire team, running certain ammunition for a certain part of the mission. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Or you have different loadout, different like so you have like 3 mags that have soft lead, and then you have a couple of mags that have armor piercing,
Yeah.
and you have to manage that based off of what the situation calls for. To your
Yeah.
point, if you're shooting in a house and you have HVTs or you have hostages or whatever the case is, you don't want a whole lot of
Boom.
wall penetration.
For
I
sure.
mean, you want to put people down with slugs. You want to put people down, but you don't want to necessarily be carving through the walls.
Yeah, get the guy 10 rooms over.
what,
You know.
what about you, Leptic? What do you think about the whole penetrative capabilities for different types of ammo types? And what is your experience been on those?
I mean, well, I've really only owned one gun, and it was a 22 lever action, so I don't know
That's not penetrating
jack
nothing.
about guns.
He's not a gun guy.
I know all about what they do to bodies,
Mhm.
but I don't know so much about them. But yeah, I mean, they're all valid points, right? Like, what is it always comes back down to like what Baker said earlier with the customization options and everything, and what is more important here and there, especially when he talks about those close quarters combat situations, or shooting through walls and hitting civilians. Because have they talked at all? Are there going to be civilians in these
I think
environments?
so.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a huge takeaway for what this game is going to be when you walk into a town or a city or something, right? And it's going to be detrimental to your loadout, because if you're walking into civilian populace, who bringing frag grenades, might be a huge deterrent if you're surrounded by children and families and stuff. Even with ballistics and whatnot. And I'm also curious to know if like how in depth that entire scheme is going to go. Is it when we're in these situations, is it all about killing, or are we talking non-lethal capabilities as well?
Right.
Mission sets and stuff, is it all just going to be gunning down the bad guy, or
Mhm.
what other equipment and skill sets are we going to use? Splinter Cell.
Yeah. Do we?
you
Are
know
there any coin operations, right, where you have to go in there and you have to persuade the people, the populace, right? Like, 'cause if you go in
hmm
there and you're blowing up, civilians,
they're going to
with
start
your,
hating you.
they're gonna start hating you, and then maybe now they're hostile the next time you come through. And these are all things that I think Arma, and then keep going back to Arma, right? Because this kind of gives me a little bit of that feeling from some of the angles of it.
Yeah,
You
like
look at
the
you look at
alive
Arma, and
mods
they
and
have like
stuff.
the Alive mod, and they have other types of mods that do that, where the civilian population can either be with you and give you intel and help you out, or they're hostile, and next thing you know, they're pulling out RPGs out of their boots, a whole ass RPG out of their
Yeah, I
out of
can't. I wouldn't be able to imagine that it would adjust reputation with the populace too, though, because it is said that the servers, there's going to be multiple people on on these maps and whatnot, right?
yeah.
And surely that would be like a collective effect if everyone was killing civilians, which would demoralize some players versus others. So
Hmm.
I would imagine that it would come more as like I don't know if there's going to be a score type system or something, or how you unlock equipment and weapons or factions or whatever. But I would imagine that it would be more of a personal uh, detriment to your own statistics or faction values, reputation, and stuff if you were to shoot civilians, right? I
Yeah.
can't imagine
Right.
a server wide thing, but it would definitely be detrimental to your own playset.
So talking about ricochets and talking a little bit about the the health, right? You've got cavities, temporary cavities. And what they were saying in this dev blog is that projectile trajectory beyond that, right? You have your impact. So when it makes impact, what does that round do when it hits, flesh, as an example?
Hmm.
And all that transferred energy will fluctuate based on the specifications and the composition of whatever that element is, right?
Yeah.
So there's, bullet rotation, deformation, tumbling. Are they going to try and calculate bullet tumble? Uh, fall if you shoot through like a piece of wood or you shoot through like a piece of, sheet metal, that's going to cause the bullet to tumble.
Yeah.
If it hits you, that's going to have a different type of impact than if it just hit you directly. And so
Yeah.
what I'm gathering here is that they're actually going to be calculating that.
Yeah, and also the tumble kind of screams at me a little bit. Talking about slugs out of a shotgun, they're not rifled, they're not spinning through the air. But yeah, after a projectile strikes an object before it were to enter body, it completely changes the path and the how that projectile is entering the body, and whether they fragment or as they enter the body, or how they carve through there. It's all true to real life stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a lot of people understand that when you get shot, the bullet doesn't just go straight into your body.
It's not a
right.
tube.
It's like shooting into water, right? The bullet always there's friction and everything as it goes through the body, and especially when a bullet impacts, say, like bone or even your rib cage or something, there's a probability that it'll deflect and could even pass through your lung and into your arm. You know, so that's a lot of really in-depth, ballistics for the market, and I think they should, and I'm sure they will, but clarifying to the market that they're trying to sell to what type of game this is going to be. Are we pushing more in the direction of very realistic, immersive, Arma type gameplay? Not that Arma is realistic in a lot of aspects, but in terms of mechanics and stuff, they shoot for that, or are we leaning more towards first person shooter, squad style, where it's simplistic but not too easy, right? So there's a lot to it, and there's a lot
I
for them
think they're
to cover.
going a little bit for the former. They want it to be an immersive tactical simulator, right? From what I understand. But
it's a fine line to walk.
it has to also be fun.
Yeah.
If it's too complicated for just the sake of being complicated, and you have to take all these things into consideration, people are not going to play it.
And that's why I say the market, right? Because there's a huge market for people that want to play one game or the other. And I'm curious to know as to what, because in anything that you do, you get inspiration from something. And I'm curious to know what the dev's inspiration for this game was. Was it a culmination of like these games, or were they trying to tackle the population of the people who like to play Arma? Because like making missions and stuff in Arma is a huge pain in the ass. But like, are they incorporating this with a little bit of their own? Are they targeting this audience more or this audience more? Are they trying to be more broad? And all of that entire thing is encompassed by, again, like you guys said, the ballistics, the medical system, and everything. How do we want to market this exactly? What's the crowd we're shooting for here?
I think with all of the things you just said, Leptic, the different facets, the medic, the ballistics and all that, it could promote expertise, if you will, in certain areas. You might have some guys on your faction that really get into the ballistics of sniping, and like they get into that. That's their role on the faction. And you might have somebody that gets into the medic roles and really gets in there and learns all there is to learn, elevates their skills within that subset, which would be cool. However, in terms of trying to keep the game balanced or factions balanced, you're going to want to diversify all of that. So,
and see, I like that a lot. So one of my favorite games growing up was the Battlefield series, right? And the way that Battlefield tackled that is that you were able to unlock new and better equipment for your loadouts based on what you were playing more of.
Yes.
So if you played more of the medic role, you got more advanced medical supplies and different weapons that were tailored to your kit specifically. And I like that a lot because then it feels like if I go and play in a role, whether it's as an MG, a sniper, a rifleman, whatever, right? Then I bring to the table my own skill set and more advanced stuff compared to another guy who might be more focused on something else. So it gives people something to work towards too, which is a really important part of keeping an and also to keeping people entertained and moving forward, right? You don't want to become stagnant, like I can do everything, I'm done, I'm just grinding factions, right? Because that's what World of Warcraft is. But if you have something to consistently work towards or work on or want to get better at something, then some kind of progression system in like your loadouts and stuff is important to people. I know it was for me, and it made the game a lot more fun.
Get that.
Yeah. So just moving through real quick because we're at 41 minutes. You know, we can talk about this for all day. If you guys can't tell, we're super excited about this game. But you know, we'll have the devlog, you know, in the description, and so you can go look at it yourself and watch more and read more. But they've got so many things, you know, such as like ricochets, and they're showing ricochets coming off of different types of materials, different types of blocks, if it's wood, if it's metal, if it's concrete. You know, the angle in which the round hits that particular piece of obstacle, right? The type of projectile, the type of material the projectile is hitting it at. If it's hitting water, right? All the different types of elements that's happening when you fire a weapon, they're trying to bring into this to include things such as like controlling your recoil. One of the things they're doing, we all know control recoil in a first-person shooter is not you know, unique, not new, right? A lot of people, they learn how to do it. They just take their mouse, they pull it up off the desk, right? And they pull the trigger and they watch to see it as they go up and to the right and up to the left, whatever the case is. And so when they're shooting, they just shoot and they just pull it down left, down right, whatever the case is. You know, we're all kind of gamers. We figured out how to control recoil, but their recoil system is taking into consideration, you know, muzzle velocity, the weight of your firearm, to include that every time you fire a round, your weight of that weapon is going down, right? Like ammunition weighs things, and as you fire, the weight of your gun, weight of your weapon is decreasing every time you fire your weapon, and so therefore your recoil is going to change based off of lower weight.
In addition to that, choosing your attachments for the mission that you're on. If you're running a lighter CQB kind of kit on this particular mission, you're gonna have more recoil versus a longer barrel or maybe a GL underbarrel grenade launcher. Adding that weight to the front will help keep recoil down.
Yep.
All really cool things for the devs to be paying attention to. I'm really curious to see how it flushes out in EA.
And again, just as a final caveat on that, again, that's why I'm most interested in terms with this game as to what the market they're shooting for.
Yeah.
Right. Well, not necessarily how they respond, but which one they're trying to aim for, because if they want this game to be big, it's got to be more broad, right? If they're looking for something more casual, simplistic, you know, then, you know, or if they're looking to just make this super immersive, there's not a huge audience for people that want super immersive games. People just want to come home and shoot stuff. So, you know, that's going to be the biggest thing with how long this game lasts and how marketed it is and how successful it is. Right. Exactly. So
I call it, you know, and coming from a community background, so I do community management for professional. This is what is called an adoption barrier, right? How complicated is it for players to adopt the game? And you look at games like Tarkov as an example, which I'm not making a comparison because I'm tired of seeing the comparisons between this game and Tarkov, but I'm thinking of Tarkov from an adoption barrier perspective, right? You're going into, what is it, 14, I think, season 14 or whatever it was, or release 14. And I played it. This is the first time that I played it, and the adoption barrier, the learning curve between just loading up and knowing how to play the game right from the very beginning was super high. Not to mention all the other problems with the game as far as hackers and griefers and that kind of stuff, which is going to happen in multiplayer games. But the game just became so
It's
much
a grind
of
fest.
it just
Yeah.
became so much of a chore to go and play that it wasn't really enjoyable. And I think this has, unfortunately, it has an opportunity to have that
It
same
could.
type of that chore feeling. Let me just read this and then we'll call it a day. But this is something what just came on the dev log as well, and this was going about tying everything in right from all of the ballistics and the medical and the health, right? So, and it says, you need to have an understanding of your body, right? Each PMC operative has a detailed human anatomy with organs, bones, and structures accurately portraying injury-based cavities caused by projectiles, addressing injuries with gamified treatments. So gamified, that tells me that you're rewarded for treating certain things, right? So that goes beyond just, treating people, like actually treating fractures or treating things. It offers logical consequences extending beyond simple cause and effect when wounded. The behavior of a bullet upon hitting armor varies dynamically, and you actually see on the demo that it's hitting like the Kevlar in the helmet, and the bullet is actually ricocheting off the helmet, which is amazing. Depending on the ammunition's properties, especially its penetration capabilities, this leads to diverse outcomes. A bullet might ricochet harmlessly off the armor, penetrate it to cause significant damage, or pierce through only to be stopped by the backplate. Each scenario is meticulously calculated, reflecting the complex realities of ballistics and armor interaction, ranging from severe internal trauma to more superficial wounds. Severe injuries like bleeding and damage to your organs affect your character's body and mind, making it harder for you to perform well in combat. Various things can happen during action, and each situation requires careful handling. It is essential to know that even a minor injury can lead to more significant issues, such as limited movement, worsened aim, and impaired hearing, especially in a heated combat zone. Sometimes you inadvertently make noise, potentially revealing your location to enemies. In more severe cases, these injuries can cause blood loss, which may affect your vision or even lead to a coma, from which only other friendly PMCs can save you. Understanding and managing these risks are critical performing. Kind of goes what you were saying before, like Leptic, like almost like permanent type injuries. Like you got shot in your dick. I stopped the bleeding.
But you
You're
ain't
gonna
fucking
be in
anymore.
pain.
Better call your wife now.
Oh man. Yeah, it sounds like ammo choice and shot placement are big things to pay attention to here. Arming distance, asshole.
The arming distance asshole. That's an old squad.
Old quote from our squad days.
Old
but
squad
it's
meme.
very
People would
much
be
that.
people trying to shoot a freaking Logi or shoot a tank, and they're like right across the
close.
street from it, and you just hear this. It's so embarrassing too, because we've all done it. We've all done it at least once, right? And you just
For
go,
sure.
ting, you're like, motherfuck, and you just
Yeah.
like,
It's ballistics knowledge. It sounds like that's how this is going to be, and that was just a little taste. But
Yeah.
the knowledge that you need as a PMC in the game is going to be crucial if you're going to be successful. Your faction is going to be successful in these missions. So
My closing statement is this game has me interested. It has me interested. And I think with all the news that we have so far, I don't mind if the game gets delayed. I'd rather have a finely tuned, car than, a little $200 beater regardless. And launch is always one of the most important aspects of any successful game.
absolutely.
But I'm excited to see what they do with it. I would like to see it tackle a lot of things from a lot of different games that I play, and intricately place them all in one place so that I can enjoy something long term and really get my money's worth from it with a good development team. So
Yeah.
and if it does get delayed, which again I'm okay with it as well. I I agree. I'm excited to see how this game lands. I I feel like I get a little bit of like Star Citizen type vibes, right? Where I think they're trying to do just a little bit too much. And like Star Citizen
Yeah.
is never going to be feature complete, right? Because they're just trying to do too much. By the way, I love Star Citizen, but
Promising too much.
promising too much.
Yeah.
And I think this has the opportunity or the potential to be a game that that offers too much. And so if you're a casual player, you might have some FOMO happening there, right? If you're a grinder, you might get upset because some of the systems might not be balanced or some of the systems might be too complicated. And so you're going to be. I see this game either being a huge success because they've addressed all of these issues from the beginning, or I see it being just a lot of noise happening because of all of these different systems and the intricacies of them. So,
And
well,
that's why a release is going to be so important. No
right.
Man's Sky was a perfect example of that.
Mhm.
It nowadays it's an awesome game.
Awesome
There's
game.
so much to it.
Well, it
And
took a
there's
class action lawsuit, but yes, it's an
yeah,
awesome.
there's hundreds of hours of gameplay, right? But they overpromised. They
Mhm.
overpromised, and they could have had a fantastic launch, but it just wasn't where it is currently. You know.
Right.
So as long as they can manage that and give us something worthwhile while they continue to develop it, don't overpromise anything. I think they'll have a pretty locked down market, and it'll be successful.
Well, hey,
Combat action team.
we're at time. But hey, thanks everyone. I didn't mean to save that thought for next podcast. Sorry. We're going to be going every 2 weeks. So, but hey, thanks for everyone checking us out. This is episode 2. Feel free to leave us your comments and suggestions and feedback. Join our Discord. Link in the description down below. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. You know what to do, man. You're not new to this stuff. Support us if you like us. If you don't like us, well, go fuck yourself. So, kidding, not kidding. So. All right. Well, thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time on Purrfect Tactics. Take care.
Bye bye.